Neighbor cut down OOP's tree without permission. I am not OOP. Original op is you, the teach gurunet in our tree law. Original post. Okay, tree law fans. I have an issue and some questions on how to best proceed while I wait for an arborist to call me back to see if I can get a value from photographs and dimensions of a tree that was removed from my property. Here is the story. About a year and a half ago, it was spring or early summer. My elderly, turns 80 tomorrow, neighbor came to my door and said, "That tree," pointing towards one near the street, in his yard, actually county owned, "is dropping stuff on my driveway. What are you going to do about it? It is some non-native tree and does drop something that I wouldn't call berries, but leaves brown stains." I pointed to the tree that he indicated and said, "That one? That is your tree. You can do whatever you want on your property." He insisted it was mine. So I walked out into the yard and showed him that the property line is obvious because we have a fence in the backyard, and said, "This tree is yours," pointing at the one on the street. "And this tree is mine," pointing to the one obviously on my side of the property line. A 65 feet tall, 30 inches diameter sweet gum. He said, "Oh, okay," and walked away. Although we have always been friendly, we have not really talked with these neighbors in several years. Except, ironically enough, the previous year when they asked who I had used as a tree service to remove a dead tree and trim my others. And I suspected the confusion was either alcohol-induced, because before he built a back deck, I usually saw him on the front steps with a glass of whiskey in his hand. Or that possibly he was starting to suffer from dementia. Sorry about the run-on sentence and all the parenthetical statements. I type like I talk when I am upset. Fast forward to today, and I see the tree company is doing some work in front of their house. But I figure they are just trimming, or maybe taking a somewhat sickly maple out of the front yard. From my home office, I can't really see into their yard, and certainly can't see my tree, which is close to the front of the opposite end of the house. However, I heard a loud boom, and when I looked out I could see a large limb that could not have come from their little maple. And the angle shows it must have been from my tree. I ran outside to see what was happening. I know they are completely within their rights to trim any overhang on their side. And although I would not have been happy because it would have been almost half the crown, if that was what they did, I would have not said anything. However, when I got outside, all the limbs had been removed, and they were halfway done cutting down the entire tree. I yelled at the tree service guys that they were cutting down my tree. And the crew chief said, "We asked her, and she said you gave permission." I took photographs to document what was going on, and then went to talk to the neighbors. She was quite defensive and insisted I had given permission. He, her husband, had told her that he asked if I would pay half to have the tree removed. And I had said, "No, but do what you want, it is your tree." Not what I said at all. And he never mentioned anything about sharing cost, which I would have refused. I love that tree, and it provides nice cooling shade to my bedroom, and a good vantage point to see birds that roost or even nest right by my window. I know, that will be hard to value legally though. It turns out, it wasn't the little brown splotches on their driveway that they had an issue with, but the gumballs that land on their walk-in driveway, and that now that they are elderly and don't see as well, they often step on and slip. After we talked for a while, and her husband said, "Yeah, I kind of remember that conversation," they apologized profusely, but made no offer to make it right, and still complained that the gumballs were a hazard and that they were upset I had refused to pay for half of the removal. Again, never was asked. Would have told them to cut the limbs on their property line if I had been. If the tree didn't survive that, then it would be my problem. So, finally, after all that, sorry, I am looking for some questions of liability. The homeowners made a mistake. And I like them. I don't really want to sue. But I also am upset at losing my tree. Should I stop talking with them and get a lawyer? Or should I ask them to plant as mature a tree as possible to replace it? Doesn't need to be a sweet gum, as I understand their concern. And only bring in a lawyer if they refuse? Does the tree service have any liability here, since they only asked her if they had permission and did not confirm with me? Even though I was home, so it would have only taken a minute to check? I think they do. I also don't really want to sue them, since they are actually the service I use and historically one of the best in the area. Should I discuss it with them? Or again, do I need a lawyer to intercede? Should I wait for an arborist estimate before doing anything else? Or should I be working in parallel? Since what I really want is a semi-mature tree. Even if the removed tree has significant wood value. Should that be my initial approach? Or should I go in full bore on the value of the tree and settle for what I really want once they understand that it is likely a bargain? I don't know what sweet gum values are. I tried to research on my own, but could not really find anything. I do know they are used for veneer, and less valuable than oak. But I really don't know if this is a $200 case or a $40,000 case of property damage. Since this occurred on my property, but was directed by my next-door neighbor, would either of our homeowners' insurance be involved? I don't want to cause hardship on the neighbor, but if their insurance would cover it after deductible, I have no problem with that. Thanks in advance for any advice. Update. As I mentioned in the original post, I got a referral from the Maryland Bar Association to a real estate lawyer who didn't seem particularly knowledgeable in tree law or terribly interested in taking the case on. But he did advise me, as did everyone here, to get an arborist to do an appraisal and not to talk to the neighbors about any settlement without legal advice. He did say I could file a claim with the tree services insurance, but that they would probably say they were acting as my neighbor's agent and tell me to pound sand. So, the search for an arborist began. I called a number of local arborists, and each said they don't really do this kind of assessment, but each one gave me the name of someone else who might. Each of them then also referred me elsewhere until I reached a larger company that told me what I should be looking for was a consulting arborist. They gave me 2 names of local ones, and the website for their national organization, https://www.ascaconsultants.org/default.aspx. I reached one, and it turns out that he literally wrote the book on tree law cases in the USA. Originally published in 2000. Second edition published in 2007. Quote, over the phone. From my description he indicated even though it was a sweet gum which has low lumber value, if it was in good condition, then as a shade tree it added value to my property and was worth his fairly expensive fee, $550, for an assessment, based on pictures. Thank you Google Street View. Pictures from just last year. And the stump size. He calculated my loss of value at $10,000 and replacement cost of a sapling and stump removal of $2,000. If the tree had been an oak instead of a sweet gum, the lumber value would have applied as well, and the loss would have been in the $70,000 to $100,000 range. A maple of that size, which would be unheard of in this area, but just as an exercise, would have been $2,300,000. He also recommended a lawyer he has worked with who has had good success in this area. I contacted the lawyer and he was happy to take the case on. We started with a demand letter to the neighbor. He agreed with the other lawyer that the tree company would claim they acted as an agent, but said if we wound up in court, we would include them in the case and let the judge sort it out. And we did send them a demand letter as well for good measure. As expected, they told us to pound sand. in nicer language. He did explain to me that although Maryland does allow for treble damages, in reality that only applies to truly egregious cases. If the neighbor had waited until I wasn't home and cut down all the trees near our property line, if I was a commercial grower they would apply. But the likelihood in this situation where they thought they had permission but were incorrect, it would be unlikely to be awarded. So our demand letter was just for our $12,000 loss. After some back and forth over the past couple of months, which included my lawyer educating theirs on the risk of treble damages if we were to go to court, we settled for $9,000 and an agreement that we would not pursue the tree service. I suspect the neighbors are going to try to subrogate their expense by going after the tree service themselves for not properly advising them of their options. I deposited the check yesterday, and in a few weeks we'll have the stump removed. And later this summer, after the cicada invasion is over, we'll plant a new sapling. Thank you to all who advised me here. I feel for Oop. If anyone tampered with my 100-year-old maple, I'd raise all kinds of legal trouble. You know, in all these tree law cases I always see the tree service just doing whatever someone's telling them and never checking. You'd think the liability would be enough to double-check records and addresses. This hurts my soul. We lost all our trees in Hurricane Laura. 2 huge oaks, a wild pear and a huge pecan tree. You never know how much your trees mean to you until they come crashing down into your shed. I love tree law! K. Now to read the post. God, I love tree law, right up there with bird law. Tree law, tree law, tree law. I can't believe the service company has no liability. Weird they gave up pursuing the tree company. I work in insurance and I've seen a bunch of those claims pay out. But maybe they're a rarity. Clears throat. Tree law. That said, I hate sweet gum trees with an undying passion. I removed a massive one from my backyard this past spring that we called the old dirty bastard, because of the gumballs it dropped. Those things are wicked. Nearly destroyed my ankle the last time I stepped on one barefoot. So I get it, but don't cut someone else's tree. Till that Americans call gumnuts, gumballs. I like how 95% of us just read the title and delightedly went, tree law! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Quote. I recently found out that the house flippers my old house ended up sold to. Not my call. Cut down the nearly 100-year-old trees in the yard and have cried twice about it. I don't even live there anymore. Poor Oop. Thanks, I missed tree law. I saw tree and sprinted to read this. What kind of tree service company doesn't ask the actual owner of the property the tree is on? I love tree law. Does anyone know if there is a subreddit where you can just read about tree law cases? Now say it with me, kids. #TREE law. Tree law. Tree law. Tree law! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Tree law! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! Exclamation mark! OMG, tree law is the best part of Reddit. No exceptions.
If you enjoyed this video, please check out our playlists full of similar content. Epicaricast is like doom scrolling for your ears. Please like, share, and subscribe.